So, good morning and welcome to everyone to the new World of New Biz. I'm not going to slip up and say welcome to Word on the Street, which any of you that joined in December will remember me doing very, very well. I hope you're all well. I really want to say Happy New Year to everyone, but it does feel, I think from a business point of view, and hopefully today we're going to talk about how we can make your agency a very happy new year. But of course, we are still stuck at home, which is a little bit boring. I'm getting there. I've done dry January and I'm about to do some sort of horrible diet thing. But yeah, anyway, I'm getting there and I'm using my lockdown to get healthy and fit and all that kind of stuff that I probably should have done last lockdown. So for those of you that haven't joined us before and it's your first time today, my name is Katie Street. I am the founder of Street Agency and also the host of this webinar. And with me today, I have some fantastic guests and we're really going to start to dig into how you can supercharge your new business sales pipeline at the beginning of 2021. So first up, I have the lovely Matt King. So Matt and I actually used to record our podcast at the same podcast studio, didn't we, Matt? We kind of knew each other, but had never really met and sort of followed each other. And it's been amazing actually to watch Matt's journey over the last year. I think you actually put a post up on Instagram this week, Matt, saying that you've grown your Instagram from 100 people a year ago to nearly 10,000 and you're aiming for 50,000. This year, and it's your biggest lead generation tool now, the Instagram channel.
It is, yeah.
It's amazing. You have
it is for sure, and it has been just
Yeah, so it can be done, guys. Instagram is a sort, and we're doing actually quite a bit on Instagram for ourselves and our clients. So we're really going to dig into that with Matt, but also, of course, Matt is founder of Sales Change and is a sales expert. So he's got loads of hints and tips for us. I also have the lovely Will Sargeant. So Will, your official job title is Chief for Business Development and Driver of Client Partnerships Exec. Is that right? I hope it's right.
Yeah, slightly different. There's a bit weird titles. It's and driver because we have a personality element to work as well. But yeah, similar. Yeah.
I love it. At the wonderful And Digital. So And Digital have been, and you're not an agency, so I'm not going to refer to you as an agency. You are a tech company, but that has grown incredibly. So if anyone, I kind of used to see you as an agency, which is why I started watching you, but they have grown, I think, from something like 100 staff to 800 in the space of just, I think, 4 years or something like that, and now about £50 million turnover, and have the accolade of the fastest growing business or in the top 25 fast growing businesses in the UK. So Will's going to really dig into how they've been growing. And not last, but almost last on the panel, but not least, the lovely Andrew Nicholson. So Andrew, some of you will have met or heard before. He's been on the webinar previously and also on my podcast. And they are kindly now sponsoring the webinar and the podcast, which is great because lots of you are always emailing me about the Kulea platform. It's what we use to send all of the lovely emails that you get from me and do all of our marketing automation and tracking. So Andrew is really an expert on email marketing and using email as a lead gen tool. He works with lots of agencies like us and he powers all of our agency campaigns. So he'll be really digging into email, and now, not last but least, but only with us for a very short amount of time to give us some incredible exclusive insights, the lovely Peter Czapp. So Peter is joining us from the WOW Company and of course also the Agency Collective, and is the man behind the Bench Press Report. So for those of you that don't know the Bench Press Report, it is amazing. It's something that I've been following for years and years and years, and it gives you lots of insights and helps you compare yourself to other agencies and where you stand in terms of how well you're doing at certain different parts of the business, so you can really focus in on the bits that are going to help you grow. So Peter, you have got some, the Bench Press Report isn't out till March, is it? But you have got some early insights for us that might help some of our lovely guests today.
Yeah, so the survey's been open since the start of January and is open for another 2 weeks. You've got until the 14th of February to get involved, and you definitely will want to get involved. And I'll give you some, I guess, inside track on some of the reasons why. So we have stats on everything you could possibly imagine if you're an agency, an independent agency. Typically, those that complete the survey are between 0 and 10 million revenue. And the insights you can get are around cash and growth rates and profitability and earnings, the sort of stuff you can't ask people when you're having a cup of tea with them. But there's some really interesting things going on. Obviously, 2020 was a landmark year for agencies, for business, for the world. And here's a really interesting headline for 2020. Agencies are feeling really positive right now. Many view 2020 as actually a positive experience. 26% described it as their best year ever. 32% managed to grow their teams, and 79% actually recruited in 2020. So there were plenty of reasons to be cheerful. And in fact, confidence has returned to pre-COVID levels as agencies are feeling good about the future. And there's plenty of reasons why hidden away in this report, which you can get if you take part. So I'm going to share the link with you now. It's shared in the chat, and well, I've just shared it with the panelists. Actually, that's not terribly helpful. But if one of the panelists could actually...
I'll do that now.
Yeah, magic. Thank you. So I promise you another exclusive stat. So by the way, if you're looking at that link and you're an agency owner, I'd encourage you to take part. You've got a week or so to take part. If you are sat there thinking, if you are an employee within an agency and thinking it'd be really interesting for the agency owner to compare themselves against other agencies, please forward it on. It's a really useful piece of research. So we have stats like this. So one of the things I've always been intrigued about agencies is their potential reliance or over-reliance on one particular client. And I can reveal that, well, 58% of agencies really need to take action in this area, because 58% of agencies have one single client representing 20% or more of their fee income. So just think about that for a second. If you're in a situation where one client represents 20% or more of your fee income, I think you need to take action, because there's consequences if you get that dreaded phone call. And there were plenty of them happening last year that said, I'm afraid we're going to have to stop that piece of work, cut that project, or the retainer is on hold. Now, so there's two pieces of action that you can take. One is to take all of the tips that you're going to hear for the remaining 50 minutes of this amazing webinar and apply them in your agency right now so that you can reduce the reliance on that single client. But here's the second thing you're going to need to do, right? We dug into this research, and the agencies that are most heavily reliant on a single client make more money than the others. So here's the really interesting thing. If you do find yourself in this situation and sat there thinking, well, hang on a minute, they're really profitable. Well, you're right. You're not the only one. They are really profitable. Having those bigger clients that send you regular work, it's often the case, not always, and you should track this to know for sure, but it's often the case they're more profitable. Our stats saw that. Now, so the second tip to go along with this is if you find yourself in a situation where you are heavily reliant, you need to make sure you bank that money, because that day might come where the money runs out. And what you don't want to be doing is when you are in the situation where you have a very one profitable client is pushing and not having that buffer in place. So just ease off that, bank that profit, tuck it away for a rainy day, and enjoy the fact that you are in this fortunate position. And follow these tips and you'll be in really great shape for this year and beyond. So please take part. You've got until the 14th. Results will be shared for all those that take part on the 18th of March. And I can't wait to share them with everyone. It's going to be fun.
Brilliant. Thank you, Peter. Yeah, it really is insightful. So I do encourage as many of you as possible, follow that link and fill it in. It literally, I did it actually the other day. It takes about 15 minutes. But yeah, do have your finances at hand. That's a good tip. Thank you so much for joining us, Peter. So now into the conversation. So I think that's probably quite a good segue actually. So Peter's teed us up quite nicely. Will, I know lots of people here today will be super interested to understand what you think it is that has helped and digital with this incredible growth. I mean, one of the things I love about you guys is your proposition, because I think when any of us are positioning our agency, it's really important. It's not always possible to be totally unique, but it's really important to try and position yourself with something that's unique. And in fact, anyone who's ever read Win Without Pitching, I'm interviewing Blair Enns for my podcast this afternoon. I think he talks about that a lot. It actually gives you an edge on your pricing because there's not other people in the market that are quite like you. And I do think And Digital do that very well. So first of all, maybe you could talk us through, for those that don't know And Digital already, a bit about And Digital's proposition and why you're different.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of things just there in terms of what you covered. I think one is kind of what's the key to our success, and then one kind of who we are and how we're different, and those kind of pieces. Just address the first one. I think for me, the challenge that a lot of agencies face is actually what do they stand for and how are they different, and is that something that the market wants? And is that something that they can deliver also? You know, it needs to be a market need combined with your ability to deliver. A lot of organizations spot a market opportunity and go after it, but they haven't really got the history or the background or the right people or the skills to actually deliver. And that's a pretty dangerous place to be, because you can get caught out pretty quick from that perspective. And really have that differentiation crystallized, clear, consistently and coherently expressed by everyone in the organization really is kind of key. And then the second one to our success, I think, really has come from a level of focus. Our CEO and founder has a kind of a saying, which is, you know, if you are focused and you work hard and deliver, you will be successful. And I think that level of focus, we talk a lot about the metaphor of the hedgehog and the fox. The fox sort of gets distracted by shiny things and runs around and grabs them and all this kind of stuff, but actually doesn't go anywhere and doesn't really deliver anything or move forward. The hedgehog might look a bit slow and simple, but it knows where it's going and it just slowly gets there. And they end up, you know, on the other side of the road or the garden or whatever else the metaphor goes. But I think it's really interesting. You do see a lot of foxes and not many hedgehogs. I was chatting to one of our clients who's used us 4 times over, and he said, actually, no, what the core proposition hasn't changed from the conversation I had with Paramjit 7 or 8 years ago when he was seeding the idea. The core proposition hasn't changed. Some of the skills, and we do more now in data and more around cloud and more around UX and experience design, because those are needed and the market shifted, but the core proposition hasn't changed. So probably a good segue into the second part. What is that proposition? For us, we try and keep it simple, and you boil it down. We do 2 things. We accelerate the build of digital products today, and then we build the capability within the organization for tomorrow. That really, when you boil it down, that is absolutely what we do. We have teams of people. They work with clients collaboratively, previously co-located, now collaboratively. We're all permanent people. We're all UK based. We're all onshore. They really deliver and accelerate the build and get software, websites, apps, portals, platforms into the hands of customers and colleagues quickly. And then we build that capability within the organization. Informally, we have what we call the osmosis effect, working together, sharing, bouncing ideas around, helping build clients' capability. And then formally, we built a construct called learning credits. So every Andy that works with a client, every month that client gets 2 learning credits, and then they can use those for a catalog of learning services. They can come to our training with other clients in different industries. We can run sessions with the execs. We can help them hire on board, recruit their own people. And then we have coaches that sit within our clubs, sit with our clients and help refine their ways of working. So really it is designed with that level of intent, on that level of focus, accelerate the build today and then build the capability. That for me is absolutely vital. The other element which is key to our differentiation is our club model. So we've grown, like you say, massively. I think when I joined 4.5 years ago, we were 100 people. We're now 800. We finished last year on about 50 million. This year, this year the budget is north of 100. And I think actually, to Peter's point, I've never got into a year as positive as I am now. We've never been growth. We're normally 40 to 70, 100% growth. I can see how it's going to happen. I think the market is there. Digital services is one industry I'd love to be in right now. I'm happy to be in this new world that we live in. So I think for me that kind of positivity is there from that perspective in terms of what we're seeing and where our focus is.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think what And have done is you've been brave enough to proposition yourselves in a way where you're kind of going that we're going to get you there. To a point where you won't need us anymore. Basically, we're going to make ourselves obsolete. And actually, if you speak to clients, I think the days. I mean, and please pipe up in the chat, guys, if you think it's different and you see it differently, because I'm sure there will be some that are different. But most of the research that we do when we're speaking to the brand side, so we interview a lot of brands for our agencies, and of course, I'm lucky enough to speak to some of them on the podcast. Is they don't, gone are the days of agency gets briefed by the client goes away, does all the work and delivers it back. Agencies need to involve the client because they don't want to lose that learning. They want to learn with you so that their internal teams can deliver the products for them. In fact, I worked on a project, I think I spoke to you about this, Will, for the Lawn Tennis Association about I mean, this is showing how old I am. It feels like it wasn't that long ago, but it must be at least 8 years ago, maybe longer. I don't know. But we were working in an agile way, co-delivering a project, getting their developers to work with our developers to build the product together. So this is something that has been a big client want and need for a long, long time. And there aren't many agencies that are brave enough, I don't think, sorry guys, to kind of say, look, we'll help you get there. We're going to get us to a point. And it just shows if you do that, they do keep coming back, and you aren't going to stop your relationship with them. I think you've been, I think it's a brave proposition, but one that totally you deliver against, and is delivering against the wants and needs of brands and companies out there right now. So yeah, it's good. And the fast thing is another big one. Agility and speed, especially now, is possibly, I think, the most common thing that we hear from brands. It's what they want the most. They need to be able to be fast, which does sometimes put them off some of the larger agencies, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
Sorry, Will, just going to chip in there. Technology helps that communication with the clients. Katie, we have shared Slack channels. You have Trello boards. It's no longer pick up the phone and talking. You have that constant visibility on the communications and the partnership. And it strengthens it massively. So,
it's fine. Yeah, I mean, I think. Sorry, I open up the chat and I'm seeing questions.
Yeah, you've got questions coming in. We'll get to them.
My wife always says you're awful at multitasking, and I go, no, I'm not, but I am.
I thought it was a question.
I'll ignore the chat. I'll ignore the chat.
We can answer some of those in a minute.
No, I think I'll come to that. I think to your point, Katie. I mean, if you're just building something, then there has an element of value to that, right? Build me this website, build me this app, whatever. What does that cost? 40 grand, 50, 100, 200. It's a distinct piece of work, and you're selling a project. The cost of sale is, you've got to resell everything. If it's 550, 500, 5 million, it doesn't matter. You've got to sell it every time. If you move, as we do, to a blended model where you're providing people into Scrum teams, ramping up, ramping down, it's a different engagement mechanism and a different overhead cost from that perspective. And you're not just delivering something to a spec, which, frankly, you can get done, with an independent agency. You could go nearshore, offshore, all those kind of pieces. For us, it helps differentiate against those mechanisms, and you get the wider value longer term. And to my point around difference and focus, if capability build isn't on the agenda for organizations, and for many it isn't, right? They don't actually want to hire developers and manage them and deal with them and those kind of pieces. then we'll often back out and recommend an agency, because agencies are much better at delivering on time, on budget, all of those things than we are, because that's not our core proposition and it's not our model. The club piece is probably quite key to your point around scale. So we didn't want to create a faceless large tech company. So we're built on a cellular structure of clubs. So we have 10 clubs around the UK right now. They're their own entity. They're 89 people. They have their own exec, their own name, their own office space, normally their own Friday drinks and Christmas parties. And then we don't share clients across clubs. So every client works with one club. They're one of 6 or 7, not one of 50 or 60 clients. They get that love and care and attention of working with, a 90-person organization, but they get the clout of a large one, and a community of engineers and developers, where someone's got a question, they can put it on the Slack channel. We've got 450 developers that will come back with a view or idea as well. So it really is the best of both worlds.
Yeah. Well, unsurprisingly, Will, we now have loads and loads of conversation going on in the chat. But what I'm gonna ask you one last question, because I know that Matt's been doing some great stuff on this, and I don't want poor Matt to not have a voice, because he's got an awful lot to say as well. But I think this is a good segue question. And Will, I'm going to come to you first, because obviously Anne's growth is impressive, as Paul has mentioned in the chat. What he's asking there is, are you happy to share what percentage share of the revenue gets reinvested in sales and marketing to deliver 40% per annum growth?
Yeah, of course. So I think top line, we have our clubs which are stable business units. They operate and they generate profit effectively, although not a great deal, but they do underlying business. That money is then reinvested in growth. And then we're a privately owned organization. We have sort of small private investors, people who put in kind of the sort of 20 to 200K type window for the first few years. We received investment from BGF, the Business Growth Fund, last year. To your point, our cost of sale is actually surprisingly low from that perspective. So I think the cost of the BD team, just for context, this year I'll have about 20 people, give or take, 15 to 20 in the BD team. We are charged with bringing in 100 new clients into the business across the year from that perspective. So our cost of BD is about 7%, and our cost of marketing is about 2 to 3%.
You mentioned to me, which I was shocked at actually, that you don't actually do that much marketing, because you lean more on the partnerships and the investors and the referral side of things, which is obviously delivering very, very well for you guys at the moment. So you don't need to.
It's all relationships. I mean, we're 800 people. We get probably one inbound every 2 weeks from the website, and 90% of them not right for us.
Yeah.
All of our clients, it is relationships of our Andes. It is previous buyers who've moved on and take us with them, or it is a network of networks. It's our advisory board. It's our alliances. It's our community of people we've worked with who introduce us to their friends, colleagues and ex-colleagues and all that kind of stuff. That's it. That really is it. And that's quite a cost-effective way of doing it as well.
Just before I move on to Matt and Andrew, and we're going to talk more about the kind of outbounding and the pushing out to market to start to pull in. Do you have a referral scheme in place for your staff? Because I know one of the things that we, even from a marketing point of view, we had Martina Lacey on last year talking about their 1MT program, so one marketing team, where staff actually get compensated in some way, and they're encouraged to get involved with marketing, and they get points, and then it shows the people that are the highest and the lowest each month, which obviously, not name and more naming rather than shaming. Sorry, Martina, if you're on listening. So is there any kind of referral incentive, or is it just part of the lifeblood of And Digital?
Yeah. We do offer a referral to our Andes, not at the kind of exec level. We don't get it, which is fair enough. We do across the business. It's an interesting one. I think it's mostly to reward people for the value they brought. My view is the vast majority of people, you know, they love what we're doing. They love the business and the proposition. They want to help their friends, ex-colleagues, people they know, right? That's a natural instinct. And actually my view is that those people would make those referrals if we paid them or not. The reason we pay them, you know, and it's kind of $2,000 up front and another $3,000 if it turns into, I mean, it's that kind of ilk of money, right? That's just to kind of reward and thank them for the value they brought to the business. I think those people would do it without that money. It's just a question of the kind of fairness piece to it. What I need to get much more effectively at, and a focus for us this year, is actually filtering up and seeding those pieces and getting those pieces coming through. Because for last year, for Quantum, our Andes, excluding the exec, the whole business was about 10% of our new clients came from that. So it's not a massive channel, and it could be much bigger, right?
Even bigger, yeah.
Yeah. But there's a lot more to do. But I'll let Matt go because
well, we've actually got
very bored with me, I'm sure.
We've got a question for an anonymous attendee, so I can't name the person, but they've put one of the hardest challenges that they find right now is acquiring new customers via email, direct mail and cold calling. Obviously is almost impossible at the moment. Do we have any advice in this area or tactics to help stand out to prospects in this new isolated world? Well, I think this is one that we, certainly me, Andrew and Matt can definitely talk about, because I know it's what we all do, basically. Andrew, naturally it would be you for this, but I'm going to ask Matt because I have no idea what his answer is going to be, and I think it might be a bit different. So yeah, Matt, what's your approach?
I think that you can hear me all right. My headphones haven't died halfway through. Yes, we're all in. Yes, perfect. I think the main thing that you need to consider when reaching out to clients is what they're going to get out of that outreach, or that email, or that call, or that social media post. What are they actually going to get out of it? So it's generating value, even when, and I love Will's model because he's essentially giving away all the tools, which is what I do on my Instagram channel, giving away all the tools for people to do that. And what he's doing is he's weeding out the people who will take that and try and do it themselves. He's weeding out the people who are looking at that information and then never going to take action on it. And what he's left with is the people who see the information, know that you could provide value, and then they're going to place the order with you or sign up with the retainer, so that you've got that core group of people who are bought into what you do already. So I think what you've got to do when you're reaching out to people via email or through social media is just provide value. And what I mean by that is compliment them. We had this conversation earlier in the week, but compliment them on their business, understand where their journey is, what they want to achieve, and then how you can fit into that. It's like a big jigsaw puzzle, their business. You're essentially just going to be one extra piece, and you need to find your place in their business so that you're complementing it and allowing them to grow.
Definitely. I mean, Andrew, one of the things that you and I talk about a lot is, the importance of what we would never do in the early stages. So say you've got your data for a really good email campaign or list that you're going to start prospecting to. I totally concur with you, Matt. What you should never do is just start bombarding them going, hey, look at us, look at all the clients that we've worked with, aren't we great, buy us. Just totally the wrong approach. And I am, I've learned this from 15, 20 years ago, probably being more like that, because I was trained in sales and probably had that very strong approach at the beginning. But actually,
sorry, Katie, there's a very interesting phrase. Every time you speak to a client, ask yourself the question, so what? Because if you're reaching out and saying, look at all of this that I've done, look at all of the information that I can give you. Yeah. If the client can say, so what, then it's not worth the paper it's written on. Just ignore it and then move on and give them something that they can use.
Exactly.
I'm going to come in on this point, because the word I keep hearing is value. So for Will, it's about a value proposition. For Matt, it's about delivering value with every piece of communication. We call it value-adding content, but it's what's in it for the recipient. And it's quite often quite a hard question for people to ask themselves, because everyone's like, yeah, but I do this amazing thing and we do this and we do that, and great. But like you say, Matt, so what? As the recipient, what's in it for them? Do they care? Are you making their life better, easier, making them smile, making them more efficient, making them look good in front of the boss? Any of those things, absolutely send that communication. But if you're not adding value to them, just rein yourself in, because the instinct is, I'm brilliant, I want to tell the world.
Yeah.
It's that whole thing. A conversation should be a dialogue, not a monologue of you shouting out how incredible you are to everybody. I'm going to come back to Will's point also about value proposition and how to differentiate yourself, because and this is me, not as in Andrew Kulea, but this is me, Andrew, as in business owner, founder, and how difficult that really is. We are in a marketing automation space, which means we have to differentiate ourselves against the likes of HubSpot, Eloqua, Marketo, multi-billion-pound businesses. And unless you have it exactly for the same for agencies, there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of people all selling the same thing, all doing the same thing, all passing the same message. So unless you take stock and go, okay, well, actually, I'm going to rein myself in again. What is it that I do that is different to everyone else? Because if you're the same as everyone else, you just get lost in the noise. And we did it. We said, okay, well, let's be honest, marketing automation solutions, they're all pretty much the muchness. They all kind of do the same things. So how are we going to change the business, not the message, the actual business, in order to deliver that value? And for us, it was, okay, we can wrap business development services around it. We know what we do best, so we can pick up the pain for the prospecting. We can do all these other things. But in order to come up with that proposition, we needed to understand the customer, the client's pain. And going right back again, it's knowing what the pain is that helps you develop the value proposition, the value delivering content, because unless you understand the pains that the customers are going through, what's making their life harder, then it's all pointless. So that was a very long diatribe to go around in 7 circles. It takes us back to you, Katie.
But super important, because everything starts with that value proposition. So if you want to deliver valuable content, you have to have a value proposition that speaks to your audience. In order to have a value proposition that speaks to your audience's needs, often, and I've been lucky enough in some ways, but it has felt frustrating at times, certainly when I was leading new biz at agencies, you're trying to develop a value proposition and you realize that the business, the agency itself, needs to change. So I spent a lot of my career trying to convince CEOs and MDs that the business model needs to change. And I would say, if you do this piece of work and you research what the market needs now, and it is more important than ever to do that, by the way, guys, because the world has been turned upside down to a certain extent. You do really need to understand what your audience need now. If your agency doesn't have a model that actually helps deliver against that, don't hope that in 2-3 years time it will have. You really need to look at your business model, I would say, and actually think about how you need to evolve and change, because I think if you don't, you could get to a risky position. And if you do, then you could end up like Will and Digital, who are going through this hyper growth because they are delivering something which is, a huge need. And, I guess the fact that you're in the digital world, Will, even more helpful now, where, I think this 2021, in a lot of the research that we've done, is going to be the biggest year of transformation for most brands, companies, etc. out there. So most companies are having to launch new services, new products, change their internal IT infrastructure to work with the new marketplace. There's not many businesses that aren't having to evolve in some way. So whether you're helping them rebrand for the new market, or retarget and look at new ways to reach their market from a marketing perspective, or you're delivering digital, I do think agency, we should be, as Peter was kind of indicating earlier, an industry that can flourish from this, which is why I kind of said it at the beginning. 2021 probably not great for all of us in personal lives, but it is great from a business point of view, and I do think there's lots of opportunities. So really do look at your that the strategy piece being in place properly will feed everything else. And sorry, I will stop talking in a second. That what you then need to do, and this kind of maps back to that question, is once you've defined what it is that you do, and you've changed your business maybe slightly, but once you've defined what it is that your audience need, what it is that you do, and you can define a strong value proposition that talks to those needs, you then need to lead your marketing from that point. Don't then just go off and deliver marketing subjects that are totally irrelevant to your proposition. Market your value proposition, because that's what makes you unique, and don't forget to talk about that. And that's the value add that you can give to your customers. So yeah, develop your strategy, change whatever you need to change, set a value proposition, develop a marketing strategy and content that really kind of maps back to that. And don't just email people. You need to have content and tactics in place first, whether that's just a blog or an insight post or a webinar or like this, or a podcast, or whatever it might be, or an Instagram post, as Matt I'm sure could dig into and tell us a bit more about. Make sure that you've got it's content first, then email. Don't just email people with nothing. You need to have something, an asset that is helpful, I would say.
And that's I think there's a question in the chat, Katie, from
yes.
Mark. Is it Mark? And he said about LinkedIn outreach tools and whether they work and whether we had any success.
Ooh.
And we chatted about this
yes.
earlier in the week. I think it will do more damage to your brand and your outreach message than it will get you clients. Because if you take it back to what Katie was just saying, everything that you're trying to reach out is to try and find that jigsaw puzzle piece that you fit into their business. Blindly outreaching on LinkedIn, and I think he's got there about different strategies for different clients.
Yeah,
it's not a one size fits all. You can't just send an email or a social media post or call them. It's all of these tactics that you have to lay out in a plan, understand, clearly defined what you were just saying about how you fit into that business, and then use every single one. Because like you said, there is a particular buying cycle, but the clients also don't know what they don't know. So if they don't know that they need that particular puzzle piece, because that's where you're adding the value, they don't know that. So you need to fit into the business, and you need to outreach and continually tell them. It's like if I saw a house on fire, it's my obligation to go and put it out. That's exactly what it is when you're doing a cold outreach. If you see their building on fire, it's your obligation to reach out and tell them exactly what they need to know in order to put that fire out in that building.
Yeah, I agree. And LinkedIn, it's a shame, because I think actually LinkedIn inboxing and messaging people on LinkedIn is often much easier, right? Because it's data that you can all get hold of quite easily. You can just upgrade to Sales Navigator and you can inbox 60 odd people or whatever it is. I can't remember now. But actually, it doesn't work anywhere near as well as email. And there are tools out there because I think, marketers get or anyone working for a company that whether they're a CTO, CIO, CMO, whatever, they just get inundated with approaches from agencies, and unless it's something really special, and maybe if you were asking them to speak at an event for you, or flattering them in some way, inviting them to take action and speak for you, or maybe inviting them to an event would be okay. I think actually what's every brand that I speak to says is they do love LinkedIn. They love the content. They follow their peers. They, looking at the content that's being pushed out. They love LinkedIn as a platform. They hate the LinkedIn inbox. And I just hear that from brand. In fact, I was interviewed for the podcast the head of digital from Barclays Private Bank the other day, and he said basically exactly that. So yeah, they will look at content on there. So use it as a way to get your content, get reach on your content. Even if people look at LinkedIn and go, oh, that post only got like 10 or 20 likes. If you look at the reach, so some of our posts only get, a handful of likes sometimes, but actually the reach and the engagement on them and the click-throughs are phenomenally high, like thousands sometimes. So I think, LinkedIn as a publishing platform is really good. And one thing that you can do that ties in with your email is go onto LinkedIn and use a platform like Lusher or Prospect.io or Hunter.io. Yeah, there's loads of them out there. Some of them you have to pay for, some of them you don't. The ones you have to pay for usually are better than the ones that you don't have to pay for. But you can mine that data. You can just go onto their profile. You have a little Google Chrome widget and it downloads all of their email addresses, and then you put it into an email marketing platform, hopefully Kulea, or however you're going to do your sends, because you'll get much better engagement via email than you will on inboxing people on LinkedIn. But that's just from doing it for certainly all of our clients for definitely last year. I would say 100% say we have so much more. In fact, we don't really do LinkedIn inboxing at all anymore, because it just doesn't work anywhere near as well as email.
Katie, a really interesting question from Kaushik. Please, guys, is this the right time for marketing for a startup? Is this the right time to start up a company? Yes, absolutely. So going back to what we were talking about now, before that, sorry, if you can address a pain point, then there's opportunity. If you can help people, there's opportunity. Right now, people need help more than ever before. The world is screaming out for support. So absolutely, this is the right time for marketing a startup if your startup solves a pain point for the client. If they don't, you have to question why you're starting up that business in the first place. So blunt, kind of take a look in that mirror, Kaushik, and ask yourself, are you solving problems? If you are, fantastic, no problem. Great question, by the way, Kaushik.
Yeah, really good. One of the other ones that's come in, oh gosh, I feel like I'm going to run out of time today. Sometimes when I do this webinar, I'm like, we haven't got enough to talk about. We've got too much to talk about today. Question in the Q&A, are businesses focusing on short-term planning or long-term planning in such an uncertain climate? For example, predicting customer behaviour this year and also next year. 2021 wasn't what everyone expected compared to what we originally thought in summer 2020. Do you know what? This is really a tough question. What we see, and this is a crap answer, I'm really sorry, is a little bit of a mixture. From a marketing perspective, I think a lot of brands right now are being quite tactical and thinking about the short term and how to recoup any lost revenues from last year, launch new brands and products. So there are, a lot of brands are working on kind of shorter term marketing strategies and plans. But I think from a business point of view, and Will, you'll probably be able to answer this even better than me, they are probably looking more longer term in terms of strategically and building their business platforms. So I guess it depends what kind of agency you are.
Yeah, I think just to build on that from our perspective, I think what I kind of realized probably in the summer, I guess, probably kind of June, July last year, was given the impact of COVID on every business has been completely different industries and that kind of stuff. Actually, we started taking a bit of a blanket view and going, well, travel and leisure, which, we had 52 people across British Airways before the pandemic hit, and that went down to about 7 in the space of 2 weeks, which was an interesting sort of period. We were taking a bit of a blanket view and going, right, travel and leisure's really struggling, right? Financial services is going to be, is going hard. Online retailing, let's contact all those kind of stuff. It's just, for me, it was too obvious and it didn't work. And actually what we found was you have to look at every organization on a micro level. And really for us, it came down to, what is the risk appetite of that organization? How much risk do they want to take? What is their buying position? How do they buy? Can they make decisions quickly? Can they act? And then thirdly, have they got the cash to pay or invest, right? Which is a relatively binary one. And actually we picked up a load of new clients and growth in existing clients last year in industries that were absolutely suffering. And then we have struggled to win new work in industries that haven't. Two examples. One is a food retailer with sort of 4 or 5 household name brands. Their revenue is single digit last year of what it normally is. Our account plan for that was actually 150% of what we thought before COVID, because they're private equity owned. They've got money. They think, let's take a risk and have a gamble, and they can make decisions quickly. So they are firing on a whole platform for at-seat ordering and all those kind of pieces, and they double down. As an investment firm, we've been looking at their business hasn't struggled at all, but they're risk adverse and they just want to batten down the hatches, and they're doing nothing. So you really, for us, you need to look at every organization on a micro level. And that would be my answer to the question is, it depends in every business and every industry. Some are taking very short term, let's build this new product, get it out there, see if it hits the marketplace. Some are taking longer term. I think by now, most of the winners and losers of COVID have found their feet. We've seen no commercial impact from the third lockdown, or actually the second. The biggest impact, obviously, is on all of our people and everything else, and it's a difficult time for all of us and for all our clients. But we've seen no commercial impact. Touch wood, we've had no cancelled work at all from the third lockdown. People, they all had their plans with a contingency and buffers for further lockdowns and that kind of stuff. I think for us, it's much more that micro level.
Yeah, agreed. So Matt, I really want to dig into your Instagram growth. So I'm diverting off subject slightly now to a totally different subject, but I do think it's been, I mean, I've just loved watching you because it has totally blown up. And then, yeah, when we've spoken, you've said, yeah, actually it now helps provide me with more leads than anywhere else. I don't think, certainly as an agency, or agencies as a group, we've seen Instagram as a channel, but it clearly is, and it's working. So I'd love to know, I mean, how did you get started? What did you do? What's been the key to your success?
Consistency is the name of the game on Instagram. So showing up every single day. I mean, I show up on my feed, I create a post or a carousel post, so 10 slides every single day. And if I don't, then there's another value-based single post that I'll push out. I show up on my stories, so I'm also personable. I show up and show behind the scenes. Like I did a podcast last week, and what you can't see now is my Mac here is on top of a paint tin, on top of a chair, on top of a table. But I showed behind the scenes of that so that people can see, actually, you don't need the perfect video setup. It's just, this is what it, but it looks great. It looks great. And you'll never know that you're on top of a paint tin. So it's just showing that human side behind my brand. And I went through a period probably, so April or May, if you check out my Instagram channel, it's at Sales Change. But April, May last year was the first time that I'd ever used Photoshop. I'd never used Photoshop before, never even loaded it onto my computer. Now I'm creating these carousel posts within an hour. So lockdown afforded me this time to double down on some creativity, understand what I can put into building my brand and building my channel. I work with a very small agency in Bournemouth, St. James Studio, who created my logo and created some of the funky stuff behind the scenes. But then I've used that to then sort of build out my personal brand. And that's where I see it. I don't see Instagram as being a big brand building channel, but it is great for building a personal brand, which then feeds into, so if you take the sort of the biggest example of that, Gary V will use it to build his personal brand, but VaynerMedia, for example, is not like a huge growth channel. So he's using that to connect with people so that he can bring him into his ecosystem, which is exactly what I've been using it for.
Yeah, it's interesting. And in fact, the same rules apply to a certain extent with LinkedIn, I would say, is personal channels tend to do a lot better than business channels. But if you want to generate content from your business channel, you can then drive it out through to, on your personal channel. But it's been amazing. And I just think the fact that, I mean, the way that you position your content, Matt, I think is also really useful. Can you give people some hints and tips about how to develop good, helpful content that people actually engage with?
So my content is all from my personal experience. So I've been working in B2B sales for around 15, 20 years. And you saying you feel old, I feel old now. But I've been working in the sales environment for about 15 years. So everything that I've ever been taught, everything that I've ever learned, I am now passing on. And I was doing some small sales coaching before, but this has given me an opportunity to really, and I hate the word, double down on that, and then use it to explode my personal brand and then create a service out of that. So all of my posts are value-based. So there's something that you can take away from it. There's a call to action at the end. So I want to know if that helped you, if it didn't help you. And I use the audience insights to then drive the next piece of content. So, and that's what I also do on my stories. So I ask quite a few questions. If I get more yeses than nos, for example, then I'll use that to create the next piece of content. So the audience is part of the journey, which builds people's affiliation with my channel. They show up when I post. I get them to switch on post notifications, all that type of stuff. exactly what you do to grow a YouTube channel, but I'm just doing it on Instagram.
Yeah, I think people forget to do that sometimes. Like, look at what people are asking you or what they're saying on your social posts. You know, what common things are coming through, and start to build your content around that. Same with the webinar. Like, we'll look at all the questions and pits that you guys have put in the chat, and that will help us go, okay, this is what we can help with next time. And I think another thing, and I do think this has improved vastly, but certainly back in the day, you know, for even 5 years ago, and there are still agencies out there like this now, and I've spoken to some recently that are still scared that we don't want to give our magic away, we don't want to show them everything, we don't want to. I really think that has to change. Like, clients want it, and to show smoke and mirrors and say, oh no, we can't tell you that, that's a secret. No client's going to want to buy from you if you do that. And it is something that agencies, sadly, they're really scared sometimes to be that giving and that helpful. And I think we have to change that. It has to be a more open world, because no client's going to trust you otherwise.
It's an indirect way of it's an indirect way of showing what value you can bring to the client. So we were talking about how you can do outreach. My Instagram channel is an indirect way of me saying, look at me, look how great I am. But what I'm actually doing is showing, yes, look at all my knowledge, but come and join the journey. Come and, if you want some more, then come and book a coaching call with me, or come and let me help you grow your Instagram channel. So I'm actually using my content as a way to say, look, I can do it. Come and join me, and we'll do it together.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think it's such a nice, and look, it's worked, right? You're nearly at 10 followers now. I'm spying on you so that we can adopt some more of that. We certainly haven't got to 10,000, but to be fair to us, we focused on the webinar and the podcast and email as our kind of initial channel. And that's another great tip is, work on one channel initially, then move to another channel. So then we really have done a lot on LinkedIn, and now we're starting to push Instagram.
Yeah, which is what I did, by the way, because we met at a podcast studio. The podcast was my main channel initially, and I grew the podcast. I think we went into the top 20 in the business charts. So we used that, I used that to then leverage and build an Instagram channel. And then I've used the information that I get from the podcast, because the audience asks questions from the podcast as well. The guests ask questions, so it's a back and forth. So that then gives me the opportunity to create content, because people want to know the answers to the questions that you're being asked. So just answer them.
Yeah, exactly. Just be open and be helpful.
Yeah.
It's really that simple, guys. Be helpful. Right, we've only got 6 minutes left, and there's so many questions. So just so all of you know, all of my lovely guests today are actually appearing on my podcast. So what I'm going to do is save all of these questions down and make sure I ask anything that we don't get to today in the podcast, and then you'll be able to hear. And that usually I talk way too long with my guests on the podcast. They're supposed to be about half an hour to 40 minutes, but they're usually about an hour. So I think these are all going to be about an hour long. So yeah, I'll make sure I ask any questions we don't get to. But Andrew, before we finish, I really want to just dig into, and it is going to have to be a couple of minutes before we round up, top tips for email outreach. And Ollie, we will answer your other question independently about why HubSpot over why not why HubSpot over Kulea, why Kulea over HubSpot. I mean, one of the big things I must say, but my opinion on that, just very quickly, is 1, it's more cost effective. 2, you get Andrew and his team actually helping you do stuff, which you kind of get at HubSpot, but nowhere near to the same level. So yeah, better value and more hands-on help and advice would be my two reasons. But anyway, Andrew, over to you for email tips.
Cool. Email tips, top tips. Okay, so be human. It's an obvious one, but so many brands make the mistake. Also, it has to be said, agencies in particular, because there's so much brand and design skill sitting in agency. Quite often that trumps that human approach, and we feel, no, we need to send this really beautiful HTML email, goes out. No, because that comes from the sales or marketing department. It doesn't come from a person. So personal outreach is so much more effective. Going back to the question we had there earlier about prospecting. Now, I recommend strongly combining your tools. So yes, you can have a large data set, but not too large, because spray and pray doesn't work, but a large initial data set. but then use the prospecting tools to keep that fresh. So use the likes of Prospect.io. Automate your processes. It doesn't have to be painful. So you can plug Prospect.io into Zapier, plug Zapier into your marketing automation platform. That would be Kulea. And then send an automated nurturing outreach program into play. You can score your leads. You can then pick up the phone and only talk to those that are actually engaged. You can respond, because guess what? People, if you're communicating in an interesting, value-adding, relevant, concise fashion, they actually respond. And I know this. I know Katie, one of your clients for the prospecting that we were doing, they generated 4 conversations and a business meeting yesterday.
Yeah.
So that's just on a morning's outreach. So yeah, well done, Team Street.
Well, if you do this right, it does work. That's the thing.
Yeah, completely. And going back to Will's point earlier, the reason I know that is because we have a shared Slack channel with Team Street, because they're part of one of our customer base. So we share, and it's that communication, having open, regular communication and touch points.
We can go on Slack now, Andrew. Are you messaging the team?
I'm messaging the team.
Love it. So I literally only have 3 minutes left, and there's a few more things that I want to do. Whilst we're chatting, I am going to launch the poll. So please have a look at that in the background. And if you have 2 minutes to fill it in, do fill it in, because it really helps us deliver better content for you. All the things we're just talking about, basically. Fill this in, and it'll help me make sure I get the right guests on next month, and the month after, and the month after that. So yeah, tell us what you want to hear about and where your problems are, etc. So in terms of kind of wrapping things up, I think we've had a really good, high level bit from all of you, but 3 really important things to remember. 1, obviously, the referral side and looking at your partnerships and how you can grow those referrals from Will. Will, any kind of top tips or a last leaving note for our lovely audience?
No, I think just building on the other stuff, and I appreciate that we were different approaches and different views. I think it is remarkable, with a bit of digging and asking, who knows who will make a warm introduction if you've done a good job for them. And going to your people and just saying, look, we're looking to grow our business. Do you know anyone in your network that you think would benefit from partnering with us? I think it's easier than people think it is.
Don't be scared to do it. I don't know why. And I'll also ask your clients, right? If you're close with your clients, or your account directors, account managers are close with their clients, project managers, whoever it might be, ask them, we've done a really great job for you. Can you introduce us to someone else? We really want to grow this year. Don't be scared to do that, because clients honestly don't mind. Andrew, top email tip? A different one to you've already given us.
I'm just responding to the chat with the little one brings a great cappuccino.
Love him. He needs to get here.
Top tip. You've probably heard me talk about this before, but we highly recommend what we call the iPhone test for all your outbound communications. If it couldn't be succinctly written on an iPhone, then it's too long. Keep it concise, to the point, communicate that value, get in, get out. Okay, that's my top tip for today.
Brilliant. And Matt, my question to you is quite specific in my last minute, and sorry if we end up being 12:01 when I end this. Can you explain the value posts? Because we have seen fantastic traction with those, both on LinkedIn and Instagram, and in fact they're starting to get better traction even than our video posts. So for those of you that don't know what a value post, Matt, can you just explain how they work?
So the carousel posts?
Yes.
Yes, so carousel posts are essentially just 10 slides which appear like a panoramic image, but it's basically you create an artboard and then place the images across, and the images are split across the different slides, but it's a seamless 10-slide carousel with a short punchy message.
Yeah,
essentially
and
it. But
each time you slide, it's giving you more information, so it's giving you a bit more insight, learning something else, and then at the end it's like hopefully call to action.
And each one of those swipes is an interaction with your content. So Instagram counts it as an interaction. So if it's a like, if it's a comment, every single swipe is an interaction that Instagram sees. So it thinks that your content is super valuable.
Yeah, exactly. And then you go up in the rankings. So there we go. I am 1 minute past. Thank you, all of you that are still here. And thank you to those of you that have filled in the poll. I will probably go against Andrew's normal rules of don't send lots of calls to action in my follow-up email.
You always do, Katie. It's fine.
It kind of works still in this instance because I'm not trying to get you to do anything.
It's not cold outreach, so it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to answer some of the questions that you guys have asked. So thank you all for joining. We'll be in touch via email later today. For anyone who missed it or if you want to share it, we'll also get the recording out to you guys tomorrow. And a big thank you to my wonderful guests. Thank you for helping kickstart everyone's February and come up with some great ideas for their marketing in 2021.